Gerald. I feel privileged po na magsalita dito to share yung konting aral ko na napulot ko sa journey ko. But before that, I would like to thank Sir Gerald and Pastor Hope for giving me this privilege, this opportunity to share insights to distinguished panel of people. So kasi po Palm Sunday ngayon, so happy Palm Sunday. It's a festive day. It's a day we celebrate the coming of Christ through the gates of Jerusalem to spread Christ consciousness. And for the longest time, lalo na po because I was born into the Catholic faith, I just took it like that, Christ consciousness, not knowing fully kung ano po talagang ibig sabihin nun. So, as I got older, siguro po, I became a little wiser at unti-unti ko pong na-realize what really is Christ consciousness. So, I would like to take you on the small journey po na itinaha ko to discover that, or I would say to rediscover that in its most enriching, in its most meaningful sense. So, katulad po ng introduction sa akin, nasabi na I was in the corporate world for the longest time. Pagka-graduate ko po na UP, I finished it in 4 years. I did not want to stay in school. As soon as I graduated, I started working. Halos wala pong pause yan, dire-diretso. I was a man on a rush. On a rush for what? I didn't even know. Tapos ngayon, in hindsight, on a rush for what? And then I realized, there is no rush. I was just, delusion lang para. Marami palang na we take as serious, we take as true, when in reality, they do not really mean as much. Na ang importante pala is the things we practically, things that are in front of us, but we take for granted. Family, values, our health, the freedom of choice, our exercisable options that we can take, but we choose not to because for fear of the unknown, for fear of the unpredictabilities, for taking comfort in what is familiar, kahit po hindi naman ideal talaga para sa atin. So ito po, umpisahan ko lang. So when I graduated, I worked in the corporate world up until 2004. Tapos po, a series of things happened. I would even say cathartic. Kumbaga it jolts you, it awakens you to the harsh realities. And yun po, napuna ko na pag may mga pagsubok po ang buhay, we don't necessarily have to auto-react. I was going through a nasty divorce, so let me share that intimate part of my story. It still hurts. Because when you get married, it's a very, very strong statement. Because you are saying, number one, you found the person you are willing to get old and be with for the rest of your life. It means that you're now going beyond the here and now and investing into the future. So when divorce happens, it shatters that paradigm. It shatters everything. What you thought to be true suddenly no longer exists. Masakit po. And I've always been a proud man. So I can take this, I can do it, I can take control. Until I was humbled into a corner where I had to say, I am in a very, very tight corner now. Whatever I know, whatever life experience I have, I cannot bank on to take me out of this predicament. Because divorce po, kala nyo simple lang na two people agree to live separate lives, they sign a piece of paper, and that's that. Hindi po. That's an oversimplification of a very disturbing problem in society. Because that's when attrition comes into play, that's when lawyers come into play, that's where dollars and cents override the love and affection of marriage. It becomes a dirty game. And at that point, I found myself helpless. And I did something I hardly ever did before. I looked above and I said, help me. I had to humble myself, I had to swallow my pride and admit that this problem is bigger than me. Help me. Because the consequences of what will happen pag ito nagpatuloy without change can be catastrophic. Ayoko pong mangyari yun, and I cannot find a way out of that tight spot. Tulungan niyo po ako. Help me. And you know what? Intervention came. Help came in the most bizarre way that you cannot script. Unang-una po, I was in debt, personal debt. Lahat naman po ng tao sa Canada, I was still living in Canada during that time. Lahat naman po yan baon sa utang eh. Utang sa kotse, utang sa bahay, utang sa maraming bagay. So I had $22,000 in debt, freshly negotiated from a bank that will take me 4 years to pay, monthly, paying $650 a month. 4 years of indentured slavery. Why do I say help came, intervention came? Kasi po, galing ako ng Burning Man. Hindi ko po alam na, pagit ni Pastor nga, in one of my introduction, I came to from Burning Man. Kung hindi niyo po alam kung ano yung Burning Man, it's an adventure. Isang linggo po into the deep desert of Nevada in the US. Wala pong tumitira doon, zero population, but in 1 week na meron pong Burning Man, as many as, during my time, as many as 30,000 people came there, of like-minded people who were open to possibilities beyond the day-to-day. Pagkatapos ko po ng Burning Man, I realized na marami po akong aral na napulot doon and I was not the same person anymore. So pagbalik ko po ng corporate world, nakita ko yung inefficiency sa workplace, nakita ko yung inefficiency ng amo ko, and during the time of crisis that I was going through a harsh divorce, sinabi ko sa boss ko, you are incompetent. Nobody does that. Nobody tells his boss you are incompetent. Pero totoo po yun eh. She was incompetent and her incompetence was detrimental to the speedy or to the efficient flow of information and balakid po. And if she will not listen to my suggestions, then I thought it was a service to the mandate of the corporation to simply tell my boss, you are incompetent. So I was fired. At the time na may divorce po ako, my money was locked by the bank because of the divorce proceedings, because of what lawyers did, and I was in debt for $22,000. Getting fired was the last thing I need. Pero I was fired. Now I'm also jobless. So medyo nakatingin po ako sa taas. Sabi ko, I asked for help. And I got fired in the process. For what crime? Wala po ko alam na kasalanan. But then again, I realized why. Because a few days later, I had to meet with the head of HR, Human Resources. And sabi niya, Gigi, itong sitwasyon. We fired you because, yeah, you told your boss she was incompetent. Nobody does that because it disrupts the corporate harmony. Pero in private, tayong dalawa, totoo naman eh. Alam naman ang lahat yan eh. But still, it was not right for you to say that. So because of that, you had to be fired. But because we are firing you, we have to find cause for firing you. In a way, that would make us look righteous. We cannot say we fired you because you said the incompetent boss was incompetent. No. We have to look for dirt. Ano ba yan? Madalas bang mag-absent yan? Then let's fire him because madalas siya mag-absent. Eh, wala akong absent. Almost perfect record in the 4.5 years. O siguro, baka madalas late yan. Tignan natin ang record. No, he was never late. He's the poster boy for efficiency, for how can we fire him for cause? We cannot. So they talked to the legal department. Sabi ng legal department, no, you cannot. So you have to do what the law requires. You have to give him severance pay. Guess what? Kung magkano po yung severance pay? $22,000. Almost plus or minus $200 to to the whole volume of my debt. So yung utang ko po, nababayaran ko monthly for the next 4 years, miraculously, nabayaran in 24 hours. I was in the bank, here's a check for $22,000, now I'm debt-free. Okay, so nababawasan po yung problema ko. Parang nararamdaman ko na yung konting ginhawa at napatingin na naman ako sa taas. Ngayon po, gets ko na. Salamat po. Pero, sige po, more. Kasi mahirap pa rin ang sitwasyon ko. And now I was getting sick. Because again, when you go through divorce, and I cannot explain this enough, you have to go through that arduous, horrible experience to really know what I'm talking about. I was actually getting sick already. Yung balat ko, marami nang lumalabas na skin eruptions. Nagpunta ako sa doktor, sa dermatologist, in-examine niya ako, sabi niya, stress ka ba? So yeah, that is what happens to people when they are stressed. They get sick. Pag too stressed, it comes out of your body. And it's a very strong statement by the body telling you, hey, there is something wrong. You have to do something about it. There is something wrong. Yun po ang nangyayari sa akin. So, ano po yung next intervention na ginawa ng, well, the more intelligent, the more benevolent powers at play. From out of nowhere, nakatanggap po ako ng plane fare to Switzerland. Bayad na po with free lodging in one of the hotels in Switzerland. Paano nangyari ito? And then I realized that it was sent by someone I helped maybe 5 years ago. Nakalimutan ko na. Pinakiusap lang siya sa akin. Sabi, Jit, meron akong kaibigan, pupunta ng Toronto. First time niya dyan, baka pwede mo namang, tignan-tignan. So, ang ginawa ko, all out. Sabi ko, sige, I will drive you, chipper mo ko, tour guide mo ko, anything to give you a wonderful Toronto experience. And that's what I did for the few days na nandun siya. Tapos umalis na, we had no contact, nakalimutan ko na po yun. That was 5 years ago. And then 5 years later, ito po, dumating yung plane fare. And then ang kasulatan, Jit, hindi ko makakalimutan yung tulong na ginawa mo sa akin. I have always been grateful to you for what you did to me in Toronto. I had a very good experience. And now, finally, I'm glad that I am in a position to say, thank you. So, pasasalamat niya pala yun. Sabi niya, tsaka umasenso na siya. She became the head of a human rights committee at the United Nations in Switzerland. Mataas ang position niya. She was entitled to many perks. And one of them was the plane fare, the hotel accommodation na pinasa niya po sa akin. So in short, I was able to physically remove myself from that pressure cooker na malapit na po sana akong mag-snap. And you have to. You cannot just put logic into it and everything will be okay. Hindi po. I realized you really have to be physically removed from that source of all that aggravation. So ano po ito? Aral dito sa buhay talaga. When you need to reboot your thinking, when you feel that you are in such a bind, when there is so much pressure around you, sometimes logic is not enough to restore sanity. Sometimes you really have to physically remove yourself from the place. Take the boat trip. In Siquijor, nandyan lang po ang Dumaguete, nandyan lang po ang Cebu, Tagbilaran, Dapitan, Plaridel. Physically remove yourself from the place. And that's exactly what I did. So nandun na po ako sa Switzerland, sa madaling sabi. And then, nakahinga po ako. And then I realized, ito po, another lesson na naman po ito. When I got fired, I thought, even the heavens turned against me. What have I done? But later on in life, not in life, but later on, just a few weeks later, I realized that it had to happen to manifest the other things that would actually help me. Ano po ang aral na natutunan ko dito? Yung mga bagay po, yung mga bagay na hindi ka nais-nais, yung napakasakit na nangyayari that we go through, it's not because we're bad people, it's not because nakalimutan tayo, it's because they need to happen. so that the bigger thing will actually happen. So it paves the way. Kasi po, kung hindi ako na-fire out, then I would still be having my job, but I will not have that $22,000 to pay my 4-year debt in full. So yan po, naging silbing aral sa akin yan. So anything that happens to me now, na hindi ka nais-nais, na nakakainis, nakakainit ng ulo, if I recover and I step back and I say, it's one of those things. It needs to happen. And I don't have to understand why it needs to happen. Ang alam ko lang, anything undesirable that is happening needs to happen because something bigger, something more rewarding will take place if this little thing happens. And you have to allow it. And sometimes you have to let go of your control. Kasi po, a lot of times, we want to be in control. We want to be in charge of things. Pero minsan po, there is really a greater intelligence at play. And all we have to do is cover our bases. Just have our hearts in the right place and grace will fall upon us. At yan na po ang naging buhay ko. Because when I realized that, pagdating ko muna sa Switzerland, may hotel na ako doon, I'm physically away from that pressure cooker, I will not snack anymore, bayad ang utang ko, wala akong tinakbuhang tao sa utang. The next question was, okay, now what? And you know what? Ang dami pong nangyari that answered that question. And I didn't have to do anything except to say yes to the opportunities that came my way. So, yung nasa Switzerland po ako, may nakausap ako na nagtatrabaho rin dun sa Human Rights Committee. Mumbai po siya, nakatira siya sa France. May magandang bahay niya sa Paris. Tanaw na tanaw niya yung Eiffel Tower. Maganda yung kwentuhan namin. So sabi niya, Gigi, can I invite you to go to Paris where I stay? You can stay at my place and you'll be my guest. All I have to do was say yes. Okay, so before I knew it, I was in France. I was in Paris eating baguette. The Eiffel Tower was right in front of me. Wow, thank you. Abundance is coming na hindi ko hinihingi. And now, my next question is, okay, what's next? What do I do now? Because, I'm at the mercy of things that are taking place. Wala na po akong control. I had very little money, pero wala na akong utang, but still, I had very little money, and I didn't have anything in front of me. It was like, I'm looking at an abyss. It's a big fall. Again, help me. Tell me what to do, where I go, and then it came. So, yung nasa Paris po ako, na-meet ko yung isang nakilala ko sa Burning Man. Sabi niya, Gigi, I'm doing a tour of France going to Monaco. Why don't you travel with me? And all I had to do again was say yes. Yun po, it was a series of yes, yes, yes. And it was one door opening after another. And I saw the divine hand at play. Kala po nila, they were just being nice to me. But the way I was seeing things, if I step back and I see the big picture, nakikita ko po yung intervention. The divine hand that looks, or the unseen hand that looks after my well-being, your well-being. I'm drawn to the conclusion, it's not just for my benefit, it's for everybody's benefit. Because this unseen hand is there for everyone. Hindi lang po sa akin. I'm not special, I'm not gifted in any way. The only credit I could give myself was that I swallowed my own pride and I made myself vulnerable and I said, this is bigger than me, help me. Yun po, nagpakumbaba ako, and with that, when you try to give up control, you're actually allowing bigger forces at play, much bigger than you, to come into play so that it can do things for your well-being. Yan po I was drawn to that conclusion. It's not there for its own ego. It's here for our well-being. But first, we have to acknowledge that it exists. And secondly, we have to allow it to come into our lives, to to make that change for us. So, hanggang dyan lang po, mahaba. I mean, I can talk for days and days. Marami po akong mga life experience na makakapulot ng aral. But for now, it's enough, and I feel po na sana well, it made sense to you, that sana meron din akong i-share that's relevant to you. So with that, let me just close by saying Happy Palm Sunday. It's a day of celebration for Christ consciousness. So we go back to Christ consciousness, and I just gave you a glimpse of how this Christ consciousness can come in the most mysterious ways, in the most unexpected places, but it's there. Ano lang po, let us just first acknowledge the fact that Christ consciousness exists, and that it's there for our well-being, and therefore we should allow it to come into